So triggers are all over the place. One thing you've probably noticed as you're going through your recovery on this is that different things will trigger you. It can be anything from a TV show to a commercial to a YouTube video that says something or has a message on it that connects with you in a way that causes you to have basically an emotional flashback to something that's happened in your past. This was something that happened recently in response to one of my videos, and it got me thinking about it because one, the person did take the time to comment about it, which I thought was really was great, because sometimes when something bothers you, you just move on. And so there was a dialogue between the person, and I think it was a good conversation, but it got me thinking about triggers that I've even had to experience. And it's strange because every one of us has an experience we're going through now, and we have our past experience. And sometimes with the past, we're not quite in tune with it. So those triggers can be a little more complicated and can basically fall into the line of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, where you don't really have a specific event which you're aware of that causes or starts your trigger. And I think it's important whenever you run into one of those situations where something does get to you, to take a moment and think about what happened, why it's triggering you, and what is the emotion and the memory that's you're connecting with that's causing that reaction. Because until you can really start working on those and making significant progress in it, they're always going to be triggers, right? But they won't, if you work on them, they won't always be, right? If you identify the situations and the issues that really bother you, that get you that emotional, flash of either anger or sadness or whatever it is, then you can process that experience and minimize the impact it's going to have on you. Now, like I said earlier, I've had the same thing. I've watched, especially early on with this, I would watch videos and they would elicit a visceral reaction from me, typically anger, but it would happen, right? I mean, I could watch it. I remember watching this one lady. And it wasn't about narcissism. It was just about divorce, and she was talking about her situation and child support and everything, and what was going on with her ex-husband. And I remember, I don't even remember who did it and what the impact of it, or what the whole, it was more like a vlog type thing. And I don't even know how it got recommended to me, to be honest. It's just one of those nifty YouTube things. But I do remember the feeling, right? It's like when she said certain things, it like burrowed in and was like, just made all that anger and that frustration that I was feeling just bubble right up. I didn't comment about anything because it was counterproductive, but everyone has their own perspective, right? So there is a risk sometimes, even with my channel, because I'm talking about things from my perspective, that I could say something that is triggering to you, that somehow pushes a button that you may or may not even know. And if that happens, I would ask you to take a moment and just think about why. What was it that was said to cause you to have that reaction? Because I think if you can work through it, then those situations won't be as emotionally troubling or trying. And you can start to minimize the impact of those things because you're able to recognize it, right? If something happens, like let's say in this situation I was talking about child support, right? And this could be this could be a payer thing or a payee thing, because if you're not getting the amount of money you think you're supposed to get, that can be really frustrating. And conversely, if you're being brutalized by paying, then that could be frustrating as well. But if you can take those situations and pause about it and say, okay, try to work through what that triggering point is, you really have an opportunity to find some closure with that and to make some positive inroads with that. Another example that I've talked about in the past was honking cars, right? If somebody would pull up to a house and honk, it would make me mad. It would anger me. And I never really thought about it, growing up or whatever. And the whole point of it, or where that came from, is when my parents divorced, and it was a nasty, basically it was a toxic, narcissistic divorce. Now I understand that, but it got to the point that people wouldn't come up to the house, they would honk, right? So whenever somebody, and I don't even remember the details, I think it was when my dad would come pick me up, he would honk the horn and not get out of the house. And even when I was married and everything, I thought everything was fine, if a neighbor pulled up and honked the horn, it would instantly bring me back, not to that moment, but just to the anger of it, right? It would make me mad. And when my situation devolved into a divorce, I was making a concerted effort to not pull up and honk the horn. I did not want to do it. That's when I would go up to the door. I was trying to do everything to not do that. And to be honest, and I don't know whether it was probably done intentionally, but I was actually ordered to basically do that. It's like, don't come up to the door anymore, honk the horn. And I was just like, are you kidding me? And it infuriated me at the time because I absolutely didn't want to do it. What I can say is now, from working through that, I don't have that same trigger, but it took, this has just recently stopped, but it took a really long time to get to the point where it didn't bother me anymore. But what I had to do is I had to connect all the dots, understand why the situation was happening, why I had that emotional response to it, and then work through it to where now at this stage in my life, it doesn't bother me. Now, I still don't like to honk the horn, and it's not something that, now I'm doing every chance I get. Unfortunately, in my situation, as I've talked about before, we don't do pickups. It's all drop-off, so there's no need to do that. But, it's one of those things that I've been able to work through that doesn't bother me anymore. To be honest, even the child support thing doesn't necessarily bother me anymore. I think there needs to be some reform, and I think there needs to be some changes in this way this whole system is done, so that kids aren't, can't be made a pawn because they're worth money. But I don't know realistically if that's going to be something that I'll be able to change. But that's something that I would be, wanting to work toward, right? Anyways, so when you find those triggers, when you find something that sets you off, try to recognize it, right? Tell yourself, wow, I just got triggered because of something, whether it's, in real life, or it's on YouTube, or it's in a forum, something could happen that causes you to have that type of reaction. And if you can catch it, if you can say, wow, you know what? I'm being triggered by this. It's really changed my mood. Why is that, right? If you can take that step take that step back and try to look at it and take and see what it is, then you can work on it yourself. Or if you're working with a therapist, you can go to them and say, hey, look, I had this experience. This is what happened. This is what I think's going on, and they could potentially help you work through that. But it's just one of those things that's definitely going to happen. And if you're working in the early stages of this, it's absolutely going to happen, because everything is incredibly raw. Everything is just like ripping the scab off the wound, and you're dealing with everything. You're dealing with the trauma of the divorce, the trauma of dealing with a narcissist, the trauma of trying to deal with your children, the financial aspects of it, the assets, and just trying to figure out how your new life is going to be after your relationship is ended, but you still have to deal with this person. So Anyways, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that because just that dialogue and that conversation really brought that memory back and reminded me of a lot of the situations that I had to deal with whenever I was in the early stages of this. And to be honest, like I said before, even previous to or prior to this, it was still issues that would cause those responses. And, now whenever something like that happens, I try to take a step back and look and see, okay, well, why am I feeling like this? What's the root cause of it? How can I process that or come to terms with it and move past it and, and then go about my day, so to speak. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this and, how you're dealing with this or maybe the epiphanies you've had with it. Leave those in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't gone over to the website, which is www.dadsurvivingdivorce.com, and sign up for the newsletter so I can send you out notifications of live streams and just different things that I've been working on that I send out to the little carved out group of the newsletter. Sign up for that. If you haven't signed up if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. And I will chat with you guys on the next video. So take care. Bye.